And I'm pleased to say Dr. Carson joins me now from the Jordanian capital of Amman. Dr. Carson, let me just start with a basic question. What did you learn on this trip?
Well, it was always wonderful to see things firsthand and to have an opportunity to actually go to the refugee camps and to some of the medical facilities and actually talk to the people, not only to the Jordanians, who are incredibly generous in terms of their support of refugees, and that's been the case for decades now, but also to the Syrian refugees themselves, to find out what they think about the whole situation. What are their wants and desires? And I asked some of them specifically, what did they think a nation like the United States could do to help them? And it kind of confirmed what I was thinking already, reinforced to some degree the fact that the Syrians want to be in Syria. They want to be repatriated in their own country. And they are looking for a mechanism to get there. But in the meantime, the facilities that have been offered to them here in Jordan are very satisfactory. And when I asked them what Americans could do, they said if Americans could support those facilities to a greater degree, because they have much more capacity here in Jordan, and I suspect in some of the other countries as well.
Well, I have to ask you, after, here's what let me just play something here. Here's how you described the Syrian refugee crisis, some might say in an inartful way, a couple weeks ago. Here it is.
If there's a rabid dog running around in your neighborhood, you're probably not going to assume something good about that dog, and you're probably going to put your children out of the way. Doesn't mean that you hate all dogs.
Given, after meeting these Syrian refugees, do you regret that language?
Well, here's the interesting thing, Chuck. The Syrians and the people here completely understood what I was saying. It's only the news media in our country that thinks that you're calling Syrians dogs. They understand here that we're talking about the jihadists, the Islamic terrorists. And it's very obvious to most of them. The reception is quite warm. So maybe they can teach us a little bit about how to interpret language.
You said something else in your Facebook post. You said we must find a political end to this conflict, meaning you don't think there is a military solution to the Syria situation.
Well, I think the military solution obviously is to try to exterminate ISIS and the other radical jihadists who will not allow peace to occur under any circumstances until they achieve their goals. But in terms of a place like Syria, you have to recognize that the likelihood of an Assad regime maintaining peaceful control is extremely small, and the likelihood of al-Nusra or any of the anti-Assad factions maintaining control is also very small. So you need to be working on some type of mechanism to keep it from being a perpetual turmoil.
You said that you've been very impressed with how the Jordanian government is handling this crisis. How would you assess how the Turks, what kind of role the Turks are playing, and whether they're being a good ally to the United States in this fight against ISIS?
Well, I haven't had a chance to actually visit them yet and see what they're doing. Obviously, a lot of refugees are coming into Turkey, and in many cases using it more as a transit in order to get to other parts of the world. But, I don't want to necessarily be critical of the efforts that they're making.
Do you believe, though, that they've been too focused on their own political agenda, not enough on ISIS, too focused on Assad, too worried about the Kurds?
Well, I would certainly like to see all of the countries in the region focus more on the global radical jihadist movement. If everybody could focus more attention on them and do everything that we can, including exclude their ability to move money, remove their ability to receive revenues from oil, take away the caliphate that they've established, and actually make sure that we eliminate any safe havens for them, I think a lot of the problems would be resolved, quite frankly. They are behind a lot of the turmoil.
You have described what you just described as similar language that we might hear from the president on what he wants to do. Does that mean you believe the strategy that he's laid out is the right strategy, it's just not working, or would you have a completely new strategy? Where are you on this?
Well, you know, I don't think we achieve anything by tearing down what someone else has done, but what we have to do is look at what has worked. And what we've discovered that works is, you know, for instance, when we took Sinjar back, the Kurds were able to cut off the supply routes, and that softened the target. And then our special ops people were able to work with the Kurds very effectively, along with our air power, to take it back. That's a model that works, and that can be applied to other places. You know, why reinvent the wheel? Just take the things that work. And we can use that in other parts of the region too. There's absolutely no reason that working with some of the Iraqi forces, with our special ops, you know, with Apache helicopters and what we need to give them the backbone, that they can't be very successful against some of the ISIS forces.
So it sounds like you think this strategy is the right one. You would keep pursuing it. Does it mean you'd speed it up, intensify it? Just help me out here.
I think the most compassionate thing when you're fighting a war is to do it quickly. The longer you drag it out, the more people are hurt. And I think we need to work in close conjunction with our Department of Defense, with our Pentagon, with our experts. Ask them, what do you need in order to accomplish this? And then let's make a decision. Are we going to give that to them, or are we going to keep, you know, sort of giving them things piecemeal?
You were asked on PBS earlier about who you turn to for advice on national security. You kind of ducked the question. Who have you been talking to lately? Who do you feel like you rely on the most to learn about national security issues?
Well, as I've said before, General Bob Dees is my principal go-to person.
Anybody else that you've been listening from or learning from over the past couple of weeks?
You know, I've gotten very good information from, you know, Bud McFarlane as well. As I mentioned before, I've had deep conversations with Henry Kissinger. There are a number of generals whose name I will be revealing very shortly.
And let me just ask you a quick domestic issue. I know you've been traveling. There was this shooting in Colorado Springs, and overnight there's now been reports that the shooter was yelling about baby parts. Planned Parenthood put out this statement. We've seen an alarming increase in hateful rhetoric and smear campaigns against abortion providers and patients over the last few months. That environment breeds acts of violence. Americans reject the hatred and vitriol that fueled this tragedy. That was again from a Planned Parenthood Rocky Mountain spokesperson. Do you believe that the rhetoric got too heated on Planned Parenthood, and are you concerned that it may have motivated a mentally disturbed individual?
I think hateful rhetoric and terrorist-type activities are horrible no matter from where they emanate, and we should all condemn them at all times.
So do you think that some of the rhetoric during the Planned Parenthood debate was too much?
I think any hateful rhetoric directed at anyone from any source is too much. It's something that we need to get away from. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be pushed into different corners and then throwing hateful barbs at each other. You know, all you have to do is go to the internet and read any article, and you go to the comment section. You don't get 5 comments down before people are calling each other idiots and all kinds of names. You know, when did we become so immature? We must somehow manage to regain the high ground and understand that we're not each other's enemies, even though we may have some differences of opinions about things. Let's stop trying to destroy each other, and let's work constructively. Let's put things on the table. Let's have a conversation about the rationale for our approaches.
It's a good way to end things. Dr. Carson, appreciate you coming on Meet the Press, and travel home safely, sir.
Thank you.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.